Here we are on a very special episode of the Now Bali Podcast, as I have two incredible guests joining me today. These are two individuals who do so much for Bali and Indonesia, but in very different ways. I have with me Ewa Wojkowska, an Australian who has lived in Bali since 2002, whose impressive background includes a decade working for the United Nations and the World Bank on access to justice and the empowerment of vulnerable groups in regions such as East Timor, Sierra Leone, Thailand, the United States, and of course, Indonesia. In 2009, she co-founded Kopernik, a research and development lab based in Indonesia that focuses on poverty alleviation and finding solutions to social and environmental challenges. Their work has helped many people living in the last mile. I also have with me Gede Robi Supriyanto, better known as Gede Robi, Bali Robi, or just Robi. He is the vocalist and guitarist for one of Indonesia's most popular rock bands, Navicula, hailing from Bali. Apart from making epic music, they are also one of the most important voices in Indonesian social and environmental activism. As a band, they have brought issues of pollution, extremism, freedom, conservation, and more to the forefront through their songs, never afraid to speak their truth. Robi is himself an activist who lives by the words of the lyrics he writes. As an individual, he raises awareness on plastic pollution, organic farming, upcycling, and more. He was also the central character in the documentary film Pulau Plastik, which we'll talk more about later. Kopernik and Navicula do a lot of work together and have done a lot of work together, raising awareness on environmental issues. But more recently, Ewa and Robi have been working on something new and exciting. It's the Soundtrack of Resistance, a serialized podcast created and hosted by Ewa, which explores Indonesia's social and environmental issues using the songs of Navicula to open each discussion. It's a fantastically original concept and a really engaging listening experience. I have loved it so much. Ewa, Robi, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you, Eddy.
Ewa, I think you can share a little bit with me about this strange collaboration on paper, which is you have a research and development lab and you have a musician and activist. I'd love to know how your worlds collided. How did you first hear and know about Navicula and Robi?
So I started out as a fan of the music. I went to a Navicula gig and it was the first time that I'd come across this band, and I really loved the music. It connected with me, and maybe it's because we're from the same generation, so there were a lot of those 90s influences. You know, I misspent my youth hanging out in a lot of bars and around a lot of bands and musicians. So when I heard Navicula's music, it connected with me, and I was surprised that I'd never come across them before, you know, having lived in Indonesia for so long, and I wanted to know more. So I started digging and listening to more of their music and going to more of their gigs, and then I started to really listen to the music and to the lyrics, and I found that they really touched me and were about things that I really care about, things that I've been working on for so many years, you know, at the UN, World Bank, and now Kopernik. And I got really connected with the music, and eventually I met Robi. He actually played at my 40th birthday party.
This was a ruse to get him in and get to meet him.
Yeah,
right?
it was
I'll hire the band.
Yeah, one of my team members was friends with Robi's mum, actually. Yeah, weird connection. Anyway, and then I got to know Robi. I got to know the band. You know, we realized that we cared about the same issues. We were trying to achieve the same things, just in very different ways. And the first time we started to work together was on the Ibu Inspirasi program. So this was a women's economic empowerment program delivering clean energy technology to remote parts of eastern Indonesia. And we started to work together by making actually a music video to celebrate the work of these incredible women that were bringing these life-changing technologies to people who didn't have access to them. So that was now 6-7 years ago, and since then we've done a lot more since then.
When you first heard Navicula, or you went to your first gig, what did you know straight away that like, oh, these guys are different, or did you just simply love being just in a rock sort of venue and rock gig here in Bali? Because the music scene is actually something that isn't explored too much by expatriates or tourists, especially the local music scene. And you guys have shown, Navicula has shown that it is an awesome part of life here in Bali. It's a huge scene. It's part of the local culture. So when you came across Navicula, were you just like, oh, it's cool to see the scene, or were you really listening, and did you know then like these guys are different? They're saying things that I believe in.
Yeah, I think the point that you bring up is really valid. I think a lot of expats who live in Bali or people who frequently visit Bali don't see the incredible music scene that exists here, the incredible talent, the amount of incredible talent that exists here. And I was one of those people. I'd gone to gigs, I like to go out, or I did before COVID. But I hadn't come across music like Navicula. So there was something about their music that got to me. I mean, I was using Navicula's song lyrics to learn Indonesian. I mean, that's how into it I was. And then I realized just how deep and thoughtful the lyrics were. So
thank God you went to that gig. Right?
I know, right?
Imagine if you didn't. Robbie, you share on the podcast that you first started playing guitar, probably like most guys do, to get girls, right? You saw this guy, he was getting all the girls, he was playing guitar, you're like, I need to learn how to, use this magical instrument. But, music has become your vehicle now to talk about your beliefs, your values, and your frustration. So, how did these issues, social and environmental issues, how did they become so core to Navicula? Is that something that slowly grew, or from the start were you always all about that?
It was start when Navicula started to making our original song. And then in the beginning, like it was back in Navicula was formed in 1996, but we start to before we play cover, just to find what kind of music we're gonna play. But when we start to make the original song, and then in the bands I wrote the lyrics, like so difficult to write a song. And then I asked my friend how to write a song, like my journalist friend. They said, we start something that you familiar with, the issue that you love or you care. And then and also at the times I volunteering a lot. I start like my networking in the NGO world, so I start volunteer here, there, and all the topic that I discuss with my environment was the environmental topic and social topic, and then this topic is kind of like a hook me naturally. Maybe because as a background of my family, I was grow up in the traditional agriculture family from my grandpa, which is actually, he teach me, I practice a lot with him. It's like living in the village, everything, and I get connected this kind of way of life and how traditional Bali farming see what is working together with nature. And then in the modern context with my activism friends, this is kind of have similar. So it's like using this kind of local wisdom but with the global thinking, So I love music, so why I don't music? So why I don't combine this thing? And also at the time, I see like in Bali, when I'm trying to find a role model, or maybe there is a band in Bali that using this concept, and I've found not yet. So there is a big hole, big hole in the puzzles. Like, there is something new that I can, the new concept that maybe I can implement it into the music that I love. In the beginning, we are sucks, right?
It's good that you're honest about it.
I mean, it's like, but it's like slowly we getting good, become confident about the concept, and then when we start to join the industry, like 2003, we Sony Music, the major label at the time, then of course they have a negotiation. This kind of topic is not selling, it's very difficult to sell, but we still like, no, this is our concept. Bali or Indonesia gonna everybody in the young people is gonna talk about this issue in the next 10 years. And then we do believe like because when I have discussion with this kind of network, I'm so hooked by this topic, like I'm so moved by this topic, and I believe like there must be a lot of young people like me at the time that also have the similar interest with this topic, right? And also at the topic like the social environmental is so exclusive, it's only in the NGO world or the government, and then sometimes the topic is only discussed on the people on the same page, the people that already know.
How was it when you found, because obviously it was from the your environment that you were doing a lot of volunteering, a lot of NGO work, that was you deciding, I want to use the music to talk about these topics that I'm involved with. How about the rest of the band? Did you come to them and be like, hey, I want to bring these topics up? And were they already straight away like, let's do it? Or was there any resistance, like saying, this is going to be hard to get a record deal if we're so controversial? Or was the whole band like, hey, we also want to talk about this. We want to talk about these topics.
I'm kind of lucky, like having the band that we grew up together, and then I'm kind of lucky. I mean, it's like I'm lucky they trust me. Like okay, and then we do it. It's pretty easy communication because we also changing the concept, and then I think I'm pretty convincing also. Like this is the way. This is really cool. This is so honest. This is natural. And then Navicula originally is founded by me and Dadang, the guitarist. And then I'm kind of lucky have the bouncing partner that can agree. We have the chemistry in making music together. And then I was convinced that every generation has their own revolution, and then the social and environmental issue is our topic, our generation topic. You know.
Sorry, Ewa. When obviously you knew this from the lyrics with Robi, and what was your thinking of working with an activist band from a sort of organization or company point of view? Why were you like, we need to work with this band? It's not the first thing you think of.
No, it's not. And it was something that came to me gradually. I knew in my heart, in my gut, that we should work together. What that was going to look like, that was still a big question mark. But the one thing that was very clear to me was we work on the same issues. We, Kopernik, can publish a bunch of reports and we can speak to the audience that we have, but that's very limited. And Robi and Navicula have a much broader audience. So if we can combine, the knowledge and the research that we do and leverage this incredible access that Navicula has to so many more people, I really think there's something there. And at the end of the day, how do you change things? People change things, right? So you have to influence people, whether it's the general public, whether it's people in the NGO sector, whether it's people who work in companies and change the way that these companies conduct their business, or whether it's people who work in government who are making new policy. If you can get people to be touched and to care about these issues, that's how meaningful change happens, right? So we, like I said, we have a limited audience that we can speak to, but by collaborating with Navicula, that just, that becomes exponential.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, especially with the academic community. It's kind of a echo chamber. They're all talking to each other. And, even if you come up with the best solutions, unless the public knows about it.
Exactly.
And so, I guess Robi was the megaphone.
Exactly.
To talk about topics and issues that you both agreed with.
Yeah.
Robi, how about when Kopernik and Ewa approached you as a band? What was your first thinking about, working with an organization in this way?
Yeah, we believe in collaboration. Yeah, I mean, it's like it also Navicula need, because especially when I write a lyric about certain topic, like a focusing topic, I need input about the data and research. So what we say is more effective and efficient, and also can be methodological research with the methodological research responsibility on it. So it's not hoax, because we don't want to manipulate people. We want to share something that so many ethics, right or wrong, is because of the research, because of the agreement, because of the something legit, what is experiment been done.
Basically, Kopernik was your validation.
Validation,
right?
This
so
is like, right. It's like a norm, based on the norm, based on the academic norm, government norm, social norm, and this is feel right for me. It's like, we supporting something that based on a heart, right?
Yeah.
This is kindness.
It just made sense. When Ewa approached you, it just made sense.
Yeah,
right?
It seems like I see Navicula music is like a journalism.
Yeah.
So this is the content, and the music is the media platform.
I don't actually ever remember approaching you though. I feel like it just kind of happened, right? Our collaboration.
Yes, naturally. Yeah.
So it wasn't anything formal, like, hey, would you like to?
No, it was more like we wanted to collaborate, and then things just naturally evolved.
Yes.
Okay.
And before Ewa said like following the Navicula gigs and become like I love the Navicula music, and also before of that I also researched which organization in Bali that's really have a cool program and everything. And then I'm actually also big fans of Ewa and the Kopernik team.
That was perfect.
So it's perfect. It's like same like before. If you have the same focus, everything's, then the universe will be put you in the right
to make things work for both of you
in the same frequency.
We started talking and realized that we're focusing on similar issues, we care about the same things, and started to do some small collaborations. There was the Ewa Speirs, then there was actually a tour to Australia where we were working with Melbourne Uni and Indigenous communities in Australia, talking about the connection between innovative technology and music and the arts, about how they can support each other. And then I guess our big collaboration was Pulau Plastik, which started now 3 years ago.
I think
immersive learning.
That's a great way to segue into this question about probably the biggest project you guys have worked on, which is this documentary film Pulau Plastik, which was released April this year, 2021. And not only was it such a big deal that I think it was one of the first or second documentary that had made it into the mainstream cinemas in Indonesia.
So it was the 12th documentary to ever make it into 12th Indonesian documentary to ever make it into Indonesian cinemas.
Yeah, I think just behind the reason of making full documentary movie, which was amazing. Our whole office went to see it because we just found it was such an important message. Why did an R&D lab decide to produce or be part of the production for a feature-length film? It's just so out of your normal operations. Why was it so important to make this movie?
So before the film, there was a campaign which included a series of 4 episodes about the issue of single-use plastic, and that was supported by advocacy and other campaign activities. But why that started was it was shortly after the Australia tour. Robbie and I had been talking about this plastic issue and how much of a plastic pollution issue and how much of a problem it was. It was, we live in Bali, you live in Bali, you see it in your face every single day. And we were talking how we have to do something. What are we going to do? And I guess the conclusion that we came to was, well, there have been lots of organizations that have been working on this issue and they've been doing great work. So what's missing? We have to get everyone else to understand and care about this issue. What's the best way to do that? And we thought that for using film in a engaging, not too heavy, light way. And we had Robbie and his platform and he's very accessible, for audiences. And so that was why we decided to start working on Pulau Plastik. That's why we developed the campaign. And on your question, why an R&D lab would get involved in this, we see this as a really big problem. We are based in Bali. We live in Bali. We need to solve the problems that this island is facing. And this was a behavior change experiment for us. Okay. And it still is. So
you approach it like this is actually an experiment.
It is an experiment. So it was actually very carefully designed with a very specific messinging in the series. We collected data before and after to see how people's levels of awareness and then their behavior had changed, before and after watching the series. And the series became really successful. And then a production house, B Cinema, decided to make a full-length documentary. So that's how it became a documentary. So we didn't set out thinking, we're going to make a film. We set out thinking we are going to do something that gets people to understand and care about this issue.
Yeah. Well, for anyone who hasn't watched it yet, Pulau Plastik or Plastik Island basically showcases how pervasive plastic pollution has become in Indonesia and how pervasive it has become in our everyday lives in ways that a lot of people just did not realize, like the microplastics in our food chain, for example.
In our bodies
already, as Robbie very explicitly shared in Pulau Plastik. Yes. No spoilers.
But the dirtiest film of the year.
You're happy with that accolade, yeah? You want to have that trophy.
I want that mentioned in the cover of the
film. Outside of being an important movie, I just as an audience member, I was really proud of just the level of cinematography and the actual, just as a movie that this was Indonesia produced. I felt really proud just on that alone, outside of the message. So huge congratulations to both of you and the whole team and all the people involved. If you haven't watched it, please watch it very quickly.
On Bioskop Online.
Bioskop Online, you can watch it from anywhere in the world. You don't have to be in the Indonesian cinema now, right?
Right now, Bioskop Online only in Indonesia, but it will be on Netflix by the end of the year.
That's even better. That's amazing. So the more people that watch this, and really bringing a spotlight to this issue and using Indonesia as a case study, which is, as one of the biggest archipelagos, or the largest archipelago in the world. It's such an important discussion. Robi, this was an epic journey for you making this movie, because you traveled from Bali to Jakarta in a dumpster truck to explore the effects of plastic in Indonesia. But over the years, you've been singing about so many issues. You've been singing about social issues, religious extremism, and deforestation. Why has plastic become such a big part of your message now? Your message today? It seems very focused on plastic now.
As Ewa said before, it's like during the Australian tour, on the way we discussed this a lot, and also at that time it's like we saw a Jena Jambek statement, right? Said that Indonesia is the second largest
marine plastic pollution
polluter
in the world, right?
It's embarrassing.
Is it? Yeah, totally. And then me as the Indonesia, that's the key emotion is I feel embarrassed as Indonesia, which is actually we depend so much on our ocean, and Indonesia is like a largest maritime country. We have so many ocean, we get a lot of benefit from the ocean. It's like a very important commodity export, and also the protein supply for the Indonesian is mostly come from the ocean. And then it's like a take it for granted, or we burn our lives store. And then this is not ideal for any economic perspective, not just environmental. Of course, as the environmental is make a lot of damage, but as the economic also is a predicted disaster, right?
It's unsustainable ecologically, but also economically.
And so that's why it's very important right now, because maybe in the beginning it's the information that we got from about this issue is quite standard. This is happened in the ocean, it's going to the fish, so many turtles die and then wash it out into the shore. Only like that. It's already make me personally, and also I believe like everyone in the Pulau Plastik team, already critical, like urgent. And when we starting do the experiment for the cereal, it's more shocking information we found.
It's worse than you ever imagined.
It's like more we digging, more
you go down this hole, and what you find out you can't unlearn, and it's really challenging.
It's complicated. It's tangled in the political issue, the economic issue, the biggest deal, and then we see like oh my God, this problem is not only for just the government or NGO, but whole element have to be collaboration to make the issue. So that's also shaping the concept of the Pulau Plastik. It's not name and shame, but more like
here's what we're dealing with, guys.
Our generation is part of the problem, so this is up to our generation right
and
now.
We're all responsible.
What kind of the future that we're going to provide, and everybody should involve, and then what we can do is opportunity to make a film. So
why not?
And hopefully like everyone, even we not filmmaker at the beginning can do such an effort to make this elevate this issue to something. I believe if people care or have the will, anybody, government, company, or corporate, they can do whatever the best that they can do for this such an emergency issues.
On that note, I want to ask Ewa from the R&D lab. It doesn't have to be for Bali, but for Indonesia. What are you finding would be the best solution to this huge problem of plastic? Actually, if you can talk about Bali, that would be really great. Is the number one focus a behavioral change in the people, or is it more effective to have a very top level government issued sort of change? What's the most what would be the most effective change if we could choose one?
If we can choose one, well, then I definitely wouldn't put the blame with the consumer or behavior change, because that's not fair. What we found is that even when people want to change their behavior, they need to have viable alternatives, which don't exist. So if there was, can I pick two, not just one?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So the first one would be complete redesign of product packaging. That's absolutely necessary. As people, as consumers, we need to be able to purchase the items that we need, and it needs to be available in different kind of packaging that is currently available. Even me, even Robbie, people who really know and care about this issue, it's really difficult for us to avoid
some
level of single-use plastic packaging.
For
so
sure.
There really needs to be this tremendous effort at the company level to redesign packaging. So that's number one. Number two is the policy. So the only way that is going to happen is if the government forces the companies to make that change, and that will be through policy change.
I understand it was very unfair for me to be like, oh, just choose a solution. But interestingly, who's going to create that incentive for the government to change the policy? And at the end of the day, that's the consumer putting enough pressure onto the government.
And it was interesting. We conducted a survey before and after people watched Pulau Plastik film, and one of the questions was, who do you think has the most responsibility for addressing the plastic pollution crisis? Before the film, it was mixed between corporations, government, individuals, but one of the options was everybody. And then after the film, it was very clear that people believe that everybody has the same amount of power to help change this, to help address this issue, which means, in a very roundabout way, is that we as people, we have the power as consumers to, if we can afford to, then we make the choices about what we buy. But we can also, contact corporations, governments, and push them to put some pressure on to have these changes take effect. Just great news from Jakarta yesterday that this citizen lawsuit about air pollution, right? If people take action, if people stand up, not always, but change can happen. So we all have power, no matter what we do. Whether you're a musician, whether you're a podcaster, whether you're a journalist, like, we all have power to do our part to address this issue.
100% agree. Robbie, this is something that I've been thinking about a lot as a resident in Bali, and a lot of my friends ask me as well. They're like, oh, what do you think this is? There seems to be a disconnect between Balinese traditional philosophy and the actions of Balinese today, the actions. So on one side, we have this philosophy of Trita Karana, right? And this idea of balance, of harmony, respecting nature, praying towards nature, right? And I know that the Balinese Hindu really believe that, and in their philosophy it exists, but in the actions we're still dumping rubbish in the river, we're still putting candy plastic Mentos in your offerings. People are bringing their offerings in plastic bags, they're wrapping the flowers in plastic bags and selling it on the street. What, as Balinese, can you help to explain this disconnect between belief and behavior? Why are they not matching up today?
Yeah, I think it's like there is a lack of information. Education is really important. It's like how the plastic impact to the human and nature, right? So Bali, in a traditional Bali, there is a three aspect when you do things, right? It's like the philosophy, the ethic, and then the ritual. And then nowadays, I think the ritual is dominant. So people just doing in the ritual level, and then actually the ethic is sometimes is forgotten, and then also philosophy is forgotten. For examples, like during the Pulau Plastik reset, we found out, like as you said, like confirming what you said, from the formal government Dinas Lingkungan Hidup said that every ceremony, the amount of the plastic waste increased 3 times. So as you said, it's right. It's like because the aim or the philosophy and ethic of making the ceremony is to clean the universe.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah,
but it's counterproductive.
Yeah.
So why is 3 times waste amount? So the disconnect is like this one. But the ritual is beautiful, but only the ethic and philosophy sometimes is contrast. So that's why, by understanding this problem, we don't want to erase the ritual, right? We want the tradition. We want to keep what is beauty. For example, we want to keep the offering, but only take out the
plastic.
The plastic, right?
Yeah.
Seems like a long time ago, like people in Bali, like they quite rajin, like they really like wake up in the morning, clean their house, and dump. And most of the dump area is in the Tegalan, in the behind their house, which is actually a annual tree, like a composting area, like because most of the waste are organic. So when the plastic like massive coming on the late 80s and the 90s, and then it looks cheap, and then without the enough education from the production side, say like this is material, but this is the risk of the material. So people still treating this kind of same element like how they treat the organic waste.
Yeah.
And the offering is like people thinking like, oh, we consume this thing, so also for the offering we share it to the gods or something, right? It's this kindness, but it's not correct.
Yeah.
So that's why Pulau Plastik trying to understand, it's like a put in the logic in the people how to do that one. It's like preserve the culture without but put it back to the essence of the ethic and the philosophy. And it's still a lot of work. So that's why in Pulau Plastik serial we work a lot with the Bali spiritual leader, trying to put in the hukum adat desa. We now in Kopernik also it collaborate in like how cooperate with desa to make their own regulation. Lucky Bali still have this traditional law, same with the official law, same power. So we want to try working in that kind of level.
Ewa, do you think that, because you are exposed to so many issues in Bali, do you think this is the number one most pressing environmental issue that we're facing? Or do you have more bad news that you want to share with us today?
I mean, it's definitely up there as one of the main issues. It's all connected, right? Everything is connected. So we've got this this pollution crisis, which is polluting our waters, which is then affecting food supply, which is then making people sick. But then there's this broader issue of, I guess if we talk about tourism and the loss of agricultural land, and you can't separate tourism and consumption of single-use plastic items, and it's all somehow it's all related. But I think another big issue is agricultural practices, loss of forest and agricultural land, in Bali, which have a massive impact. You know, the growing use of pesticides, which then affects the productivity, which then pollutes the water.
And also in the productions, it becomes not balance between the production cost and then the selling, so it's less people become farmers.
Well, exactly. So I mean, the loss of the amount of people who are going into farming as a profession, that's, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's quite staggering. I think most farmers in Indonesia now are over 50, right?
Yeah, 55, and only the 3% of the farmers' children that follow continue
the farming practices. So what's everyone going to eat, right?
Yeah, the next generation.
So
it's McDonald's for everybody.
I guess. Well, exactly, and then but, again, it's all connected.
Yeah.
But so with COVID and the pandemic, there has been a little bit of an opportunity or a pause to rethink, and we have seen quite a lot of people return to agriculture, return to farming, and rethink priorities.
Yeah. Well, this is a great segue to talk about Navicula song, which is Saat Semua Semakin Cepat, Bali Berani Berhenti, which was used very effectively in the Pulau Plastik movie to talk about, for those who don't speak Indonesian, this means whilst everything gets faster, Bali dares to stop. And that was used in context to Bali dares to stop using plastic as the first province in Indonesia to ban single-use plastics. Robbie, you wrote this in 2018. And what was the original philosophy behind this? And do you think that this is more relevant today because of the pandemic? Do you think it's more relevant to this song?
Yeah, it was inspired by Nyepi, right? It's like see, like me as the Balinese is so proud, like where in the world it's like one island, like it's solid and compact, to stop 24 hours. Even we shut down our international airport.
Yeah.
And in the modern mindset, thinking like, how many money we lost on this thing, but this is something that's the beauty about Bali. Like, it's not just about the money. We also have a restart our Mother Earth. It's like restart the computers to make it more faster. Which is actually so makes sense. Like even in the economic perspective, the real economic perspective, so makes sense. And then it started like on the 2009. I was writing an article in a magazine June, and the title of the article that I wrote is that Saat Semua Semakin Cepat Bali Berani Berhenti. And then few years later, I thought, this can be a good song also to to make the Bali pride about what actually they've been done so many years. And then because also there is a worry for me, like if we don't create this, our generation, we don't give the appreciation for this thing, celebrate this thing, I'm worried like maybe in the next generation, and some kids, they become a government or policy maker, they will change their mind by saying like, including we lost so many money by doing Nyepi, and then okay, let's change, no Nyepi anymore. So I try to start and let's keep this thing beautiful. Like even the biggest organization in the world try to make the 1 hours to stop. It's so difficult, right?
Difficult.
Maybe the carbon to do the campaign is bigger than the impact of the 2 hours. Bali is something that's everybody can still pride, and then I want Nyepi forever, and then not only Bali but other island can do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, as a resident, I don't know if you feel this too, Eva. I look forward to Nyepi.
I love Nyepi.
I love being at home. I love being at home. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I've stayed in hotels sometimes, and I'm like, I don't want to think, but it's the one time of the year where you just don't have to do anything, and you see all the stars.
Totally more clear.
Did you always feel like that?
I've always felt like that.
Yeah.
I actually think that Navicula and Robbie played a really big role in making Nyepi cool, because I think quite a lot of people used to think that it was a pain, that nyepi was a nuisance.
Yeah.
But now this Bali pride,
yeah.
of like everyone is so proud of nyepi.
Yeah.
Village, like so we campaigning that one to preserve this one, and then it's like our yadnya, our offering. The offering can be in many ways. We're offering for the culture, for my tribes, for Bali, my homeland, and then and then it's relevant right now. It's can to many contexts, like in the Pulau Plastik. It's like hey, so many plastic abusive. And then Bali berani berhenti is like we celebrate Bali as the first province in Indonesia that released the regulation for single-use plastic.
Yeah.
So another Bali make a pride by Bali berani berhenti to
Yeah.
stop using single-use plastic, even in the regulation level. But we want to support the government by socialize this kind of regulation to do that.
Yeah.
And maybe we encourage. Hopefully, we can encourage the corporate and people like for examples like people thinking like the speed of using plastic is because people thinking it's economic and because it's cheap. Okay, stop now, rethink. Maybe it's cheap because you don't put the
full
budget,
cost.
the economy for the environmental rehabilitation.
Yeah. The
for this
environmental
one.
cost is not
The
counted,
cost,
price
the cost
the
of
product.
recycle, the cost everything. And maybe if we put that, maybe the plastic is actually
More expensive.
not economic. You know?
Yeah.
So and then also rethink about the economic thing by using the philosophy of nyepi. Like economic, according to what we learn in school, is the action to get the prosperity, and the prosperity is the condition where all the human needs are fulfilled, and the main primary human needs are food, housing, and clothing, and then the most primary, like agriculture sector, is food. And then our food is grow from the land, grow from the ocean. So the economic action that destroy the land or the soil and the air is counterproductive with the meaning of what is the economic is. So by this kind of understanding, using nyepi as the entry point, like a rethink about the economic. People, especially in the policymaker nowadays, always separating like this is economic or natural environmental conservation. They always separate this thing, but as Ewa said, it's integrated thing. You cannot separate it. It's very holistic.
This metaphor about Bali stopping, and you also mentioned it, Eva, about the tourism industry. Now we're kind of in like a 2-year nyepi, right? Bali's been sleeping.
Global nyepi.
Yeah, we're in a global nyepi, but Bali on an economic level is on like a 2-year nyepi.
Yep.
Do you think this stop has been important for Bali as an island to reconsider its future? And that can we'll start with Robi and Eva as well. I'd love you both to.
Yeah, I mean,
this.
Corona pandemic sucks. Like
Yeah.
everybody impacted. Yeah, we sad about that one. But when we see like the different perspective, it's giving the paradigm shift into what is the priority right now. For example, like before pandemic, there is research in so many media that say like, the average of the farmer are 55 years old, and then the next generation who continue the farming thing is only 3%. So in the next 10 years, we have the lack of the tenaga kerja, the human resources in the sector. It's like a massive, like in the
What are we gonna do?
97% from the farmer family not working in that sector. What happened? It's like, of course, the threat for the food sovereignty, not the food security, but food sovereignty. Yeah, and before pandemic, all the economic in Bali always put all eggs in one basket.
Yeah,
it's like tourism, and then long way before pandemic, because me personally, it's like my concern in the food sovereignty. It's like my background. It's very difficult to put it balance. Hey, just pay attention a little bit in the food security, but because of pandemic, it's automatically happen. This kind of
forced.
thing. Yeah, Kopernik make research like 81% of the people in Bali that impacted in the economic, and then 46% from this 81% are losing their job, and most of them back to the village as the farmer. And then with the lack of education, everything. So that's why our collaboration so far in the last 1 year is make a training in the agricultural sector to respond this one. Hopefully, by we learn from the pandemic, shifting our priority, maybe they reconsider. Okay, bring back to the land, and the food security is also another thing that same importance like develop the tourism, and also at the same thing preserve the Bali culture, because when we talk about the Bali culture is agriculture, you know, and then by preserve the agriculture also actually helping the tourism, the tourist industry in Bali, because the two assets of the tourist in Bali, the concept from the long time ago agreed is nature and culture.
Yeah.
So nature and culture, who made that? Farmer.
Yeah.
So everybody's happy. I mean, it's like we make it everything in balance.
Yeah. So we needed a bigger Nyipi to create a bigger change, right? So now we're seeing some people returning back to the roots. So
and also helping the tourism itself
for the future afterwards.
By save the assets, nature and culture.
That actually the island was forgetting about, right? We were really forgetting about it. And I just want to bring up one of the lyrics from that song, Untuk membasuh luka, untuk membasuh jiwa agar suci lagi. To wash the wound, to wash the soul, so that it is holy again. I mean, you were writing this way before the pandemic, and it's so relevant today on a bigger scale. And hopefully everyone, even though there's a lot of, suffering, that in the big picture, it's good for the island to rethink and hold on to those old values. So now that we're on the topic of Navicula's music, I want to talk about this amazing podcast, the soundtrack of resistance, an amazing name. And I love how you've approached talking about Indonesian issues. We're using a band's songs who already talk about these things. Ewa, what was the motivation behind starting this unique podcast?
So I love Indonesia, and I've lived here longer than I've lived anywhere else in my life. And I feel like it's a really underrated place. I feel like so many people, don't know all the amazing things that happen in Indonesia. And I feel the same way about Navicula. They're massive here. They're well known, but I believe that more people should know about them and their music and the issues that they speak about. So I wanted to tell people, I really wanted to tell people about this amazing band and this amazing country.
So it's two birds, one stone, basically.
And I thought it would be an interesting way to do that through the songs. I mean, the songs already capture so much. So, why not explore that, explore these issues with the songs as an entry point.
Yeah.
And so I've been playing around with different ideas and different formats. I was really inspired by Tom Morello's Speaking Truth to Power. It's an audiobook. So initially I thought I might do an audiobook about Navicula. Then I was really inspired by the Beastie Boys story, where they talk live about their history. And I mean, initially it wasn't going to be me. I just thought about producing this story because I wanted the story to be told. And then I ended up
I think it's good that it's you, because this is birthed from your passion towards both of these things, and the fact that you already have a very close relationship with the band and have a lot of knowledge about Indonesia over your years here. I think it had to be you, and it makes for a really good makes for a really good, authentic listening experience.
Yes.
What you use certain songs from the band. Obviously, you have to choose which songs you want to use for each episode. Which would have been very difficult. Is there a certain issue or episode that you find particularly meaningful? Because you cover everything, not just environmentalism, but also religious extremism, and also freedom. Everything sourced from Navicula's sort of discussion topics as well. What's been the most meaningful to you?
Yeah, so the choice of songs, it was really, really difficult. I basically chose 12 of my favorite songs, but also those that represent a wide range of topics. So that was kind of the initial thinking. My favorite, one of my favorite songs is Busur Hujan, which is episode 1.
Yeah.
I love that song so much for so many reasons. Whenever that song is performed live and I am at a gig, I feel like, the crowd, there's so much joy, people coming together. The song is about celebrating, diversity, and I think it represents Indonesia so well. Indonesia is the most diverse place on earth in terms of biodiversity, cultural, religious diversity, and it's this melting pot of all this incredible beauty, and so I love that song. The other reason why I'm so connected to that song, I actually learned how to play that on drums. It was my very first musical. I'm not a musician at all, but I started to learn how to play the drums because my team, together with my husband and a few team members from Kopernik, we started a band and we covered Navicula songs. I mean, that's how into Navicula Kopernik is. So many connections to that song, and I think it's so. It just represents what I feel about Indonesia as well.
And it's probably it's a song which is very positive, rather than talking about sort of the issues. It's not a song based on frustration. It's really a song based on sort of the love of celebration. Robi, in doing this podcast with Ewa, you must be doing a lot of reflection on your work, the band's journey, but also your effect, the effect that your music has had on people. I mean, that's Exhibit A is Ewa. Like, I don't know if you knew before how much of an effect. Yeah.
You were hired in our management to sell the band.
You talk about, again, Busur Hujan. In the podcast, you talk about this doesn't belong to you anymore. This song, it belongs to the universe. It belongs to everyone at a live show. It's everyone experiencing it together. Doesn't matter who wrote it or who's singing it. Everyone is singing it all at once. How does this process of reflecting through the podcast, how does it make you feel about your music, about your work, and the legacy of Navicula?
It's make the bands become more humble. Actually the cause that we deliver, actually the value is bigger than the band. We've been 25 years in the bands. We carry this issue.
It's the band's birthday this year.
Yeah, this year 25. And sometimes we're doing these parts this is work or not, and then see how people appreciate that once we're doing such a good thing, and then it's keep the spark bigger, it's in the oil lamp, and then it's adding the oil in the lamp is make the fire bigger. I think me and people in the bands hear the podcast oh man, yeah, we're so proud we're doing the good thing, something that we can proud. Okay, still have lots of work to do. Let's do it again. It's as an artist is that.
Re-motivating you.
Re-motivating, it's like a spark, and then it's what beautiful is Ewa seeing through the perspective. It's really important for me as an artist. I think, it's make us more. Okay, after the podcast we have to do something. Maybe another film or something. And it's also the most sweetest present, a gift for the band's anniversary. Is this podcast.
You've really set the benchmark for anniversary gifts, birthday presents. Thanks, Ewa. The rest of us can't compete now. And how about you, Ewa? I mean, this has, like Robi's saying, what was just a 3-4 minute song is becoming this in-depth 40-minute explanation about issues. And it's so easy just to listen to 4 minutes, but what you're doing is you're creating a listening experience of something much bigger, and contextualizing what was and what is the inspiration for a song. How has this process of making Soundtrack of Resistance journey, what is it making you realize about the band or your experiences in Indonesia? What processes does it make you experience?
The first thing is I have such huge respect for anyone who does translation of poems or songs, because translating this guy's songs is wow. To try and make it sound, even a bit as beautiful as it sounds in Indonesian, to try and get that, to transform that into English is really hard. I wish you would write easier lyrics.
I try my best. It's actually easy.
I know, but
easy words.
It's easy words, but it's deep, right? And to get that into English is tough. I'm so grateful that I have this opportunity to dig into these issues behind the songs. I get to meet amazing people. I kind of become a little bit of an expert on all of these issues through each episode. I have lived in Indonesia for a long time, but with each episode, I just learn so much more and more. I love that. I feel so much more connected to the place, and feel like I have so much more of an understanding about all of these complex issues. And one thing that it makes me realize is that none of these issues is easy to fix, because they're also interconnected and complex. And also, I feel honored to have this access to the band and to learn about their history and evolution. And I think, like Robbie said before, I through some of the conversations, I realized that they kind of forgot, they forgot what they've been through and what they've achieved, and I want to acknowledge that and remind them that actually what you guys have done for the music industry, for Indonesia, is massive, and Indonesia is so lucky to have them.
And I would say that we're all very lucky to have the experience of the podcast. I think as a listener myself, I'm learning a lot. And I'm exhibit A of what you were hoping for. I mean, I listened to some of Navicula, but I never really listened. And a lot of the topics that you talk about, for me, I'm like, I never knew it or never saw it that way. So everyone listening now, please go over and check out the Soundtrack of Resistance. You will learn a lot about music. You'll fall in love with a band, and you will fall in love with Indonesia if you don't already. Ewa, Robbie, thank you so much for your time and sharing all of your experiences.
So much.
This has been enlightening and a lot of fun. So thank you. Everyone, go and listen to the Soundtrack of Resistance, available on
all the podcast platforms.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.